Imbibers, a very warm welcome to all of you. Once again, we are here with the another topic from your chapter, which is respiration. And today we're going to study about the human respiration system. Yes, in the previous session, we have discussed about the types of respiration. In today's chapter, we're going to discuss about how the human respiration works and the parts of the human respiratory system, and each and every part have their specific function during the respiration process. Before we start, let me introduce you to myself. I am Anam. I'll be your biology expert for the session 2023 and 2024, and we're going to discuss all the amazing and interesting topics related to biology, just like we have already discussed one particular topic, which is the introduction towards the respiration. So without wasting any time, let's start our today's session. Let's see what we have to study today, talking about the topics to be covered in this particular session and in the upcoming sessions would be totally related to the respiration. One is the respiration, other is the breathing technique, which we have already introduced you into the previous session. Yes, and if you have missed that session, you can always go and watch it. It's always there on your dashboard. And next is the human respiratory system, which is our today's topic. In the next session, we're going to discuss about how the different respiration techniques or different respiration methods are used in the different animals. And we're going to also discuss about how the respiration process takes place in plants in detail. Let's see what we have to discuss today. But before that, a quick recap of what we have studied in the previous session, describing you the difference between the aerobic and anaerobic respiration. What is the difference between the respiration and the breathing process? So children, the glucose is a presence of oxygen. In the presence of oxygen, breakdowns and release lots of energy, which is being utilized by you to how to go under certain processes, which is a day-to-day life activities. Then we have cellular respiration, which basically breaks down the food under the process, under the presence of oxygen. And there's also a respiration which takes place in the absence of oxygen, which is aerobic, and of course the anaerobic. Yes, the air we breathe contains the needed oxygen we breathe in. Yes, so what is the difference between the breathing and the respiration? The breathing is generally taking in of the oxygen and exhaling the carbon dioxide. This is a breathing mechanism. But when we talk about the respiration, respiration is utilization of the oxygen from breaking down of the glucose into its components and releasing energy, which is being utilized by your different parts, your cells, for day-to-day life activity, to perform day-to-day activities. So let's discuss about the human respiratory system. Let's discuss about the parts of human respiratory system. The very first thing, children, what is the organ involved in the human respiratory system is absolutely important. These are the particular part. One is the nasal cavity, the pharynx, the larynx, the trachea and the lungs. All these parts which you can see labeled over here are a part of your human respiratory system, and each and every part perform specific function and absolutely responsible for a control and coordinated activity. Yes, this is the nasal cavity, this is the larynx, this is the trachea, this is the pharynx, this is the lungs, and this is a diaphragm. So children, one by one we're going to study about each and every one of them. So let's start. Let's talking about the human respiratory system. The very first thing comes into the mind, what is the breathing? A very simple process when we talk about the breathing. The inhale of oxygen, the exhale of carbon dioxide is the breathing mechanism. So children, in the breathing process, you basically inhale oxygen and exhale the carbon dioxide. That is your breathing mechanism. Yes. So as we discuss about the breathing, what exactly, how we basically take in that particular air and how do we basically give out that particular carbon dioxide. It is usually involuntary but can be controlled. So children, I can hold my breath, yes, but of course it's not possible for me to hold my breath for a very long time. It is involuntary, but sometimes it can be controlled. Yes, it's completely involuntary. I am not deciding how many breath I should take in a minute, how many breath I am going to take in a half an hour. No, it's not in my control, but sometimes if I want, I can basically control it, but not for a very long time. It's not possible. Yes, so children, your brain cannot survive without oxygen for more than 2 minutes. Yes, you will be brain dead. So talking about the respiration or the parts of the respiration, so why do we all have these organs and how do they help us breathe? Yes, there are several organs, there are several parts of the respiratory system which is basically assisting in a proper mechanism of the breathing. Yes, so inhale and exhale. The whole respiratory system is basically organized for your breathing mechanism to take place efficiently. Yes, how do the organs, how do they basically helps us breathe? So we're going to discuss about that only. So as we move forward, the human respiratory system, which have several particular organs, we're going to select the organs and discuss each and every one of them. Let's discuss about the nostrils. Yes. So as we talk about, so children, these are the particular, list the organs from first to last needed for the respiration. Yes, the very first thing we need is the nasal cavity, then we might need the larynx, yes, pharynx, then trachea, then lungs, and then could be diaphragm. Yes, so children, of course, the correct option, the correct arrangement of your respiratory system is your nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea and lungs, and of course the diaphragm. This is your correct form. Yes, the pharynx always will be coming first and the larynx will always come after the pharynx. Let's discuss about them. Yes, moving forward. So children, select all the pieces and place them in the correct position. Let's do them. Yes, this is the lung, this is the diaphragm. Yes, have I put it the wrong correct? I don't know. Let's see. Yes, this is completely correct. Yes, it's above. This is whole your respiratory system will be arranged like this. So children, talking about more, what is this? This is inhaling and exhaling. Whenever we have to smell something, whenever we like the fragrance of something, we just go nearby these particular, especially the flowers which smell amazing, the very amazing fragrances. What we do, we keep breathing in and breathing out because it is it just heals our particular soul. Your drinks, your food just smell amazing, and this is all because you can basically inhale the particular fragrance coming out of it. The taste you get from your food and a huge part to do with the smell. Yes, it's not smelling good. Sometimes you always used to say this food is not smelling good. So if you lose your senses of smell, you may also lose your ability to taste. Sometimes it happens or not. When you are suffering from the what? Cold. Yes. What do you think? Oh ma'am, mummy, we are not able to taste. This food is tasteless. I'm not able to taste. That doesn't feel sweet, doesn't feel spicy. What is the reason? Because your respiratory system is being infected. Yes, it is basically infected because of the cold virus, and you're not able to basically have the taste. Your food just tasteless. Your food just obviously it's tasteless, and you cannot just, because you're not able to inhale the fragrance, inhale the smell of your food. So basically, if you're not able to taste, your food always have a connection with the smell. So smelling good, it will going to taste well. This is all what we think, but this is also true for our psychology also. Yes, as we move forward, children, the empty space which is present inside the nostrils, generally known as nasal cavity. So the very first part of your respiratory system, which is your nasal cavity, is nothing. It's an empty space present inside the nostril cavity, generally known as the nasal cavity. This is your nasal cavity. So when you breathe in, the air just passes through your nasal cavity. Yes, that's the only function, to give the way, to give the passage to the air. This empty spaces just give the passage to the air so that it can reach to your lungs. It can reach to your respiratory system. It can reach to your for the exchange of gases. So what the nasal cavity does, the nasal cavity is only for the inhaling of the air. There's a passage for the air and exhaling the air. Okay, it's just an empty space for the creating a passage for the air. Next we have, what is the nasal cavity? You can clearly see this is your mouth, this is your nose, and this is your nasal cavity. So as we talk about the nasal cavity, we have the open space present in the nose behind the nostrils, which are located above the mouth. So just because, can you see your mouth and your nasal cavity almost just next to each other, and that is why when you're basically suffering from cold or any kind of a fever, you also, the taste buds are also getting hampered. So this is your nose, this is your nasal cavity, which is nothing but a passage for the air. So nasal cavity, the open space present in the nose behind the nostrils, yes, which are located above the mouth. So this is your nasal cavity. As we move forward, talking about more of the respiratory system, next we have the windpipe. So children, after the nasal cavity, what we have? We have the windpipe. As we talk about the windpipe, children, the back of the nostril is connected to a small tube, ears through the small tube, and the back of the nasal cavity is connected to a throat, so air can flow into the windpipe. So children, as you can see, this is your windpipe. Can you see this? This is your connection of nasal cavity with the air, and this is your windpipe. Can you see this? This is your connection from your air from your nasal cavity with the air, and this is what your windpipe exactly looks like. They're basically next to each other. Yes, the back of the nasal cavity is connected to the ear, which is a small tube, and the back of the nasal cavity is also connected to the throat, so the air could flow into the windpipe. So these are just next to each other, your windpipe and basically a small tube which is basically connecting towards your ear. Yes, as we move forward, talking about the human respiratory system, next we have the roles of the nasal cavity. What is the function of the nasal cavity? Let's talk about that in brief. So children, your nasal cavity moistens the warm up the air coming in. Yes, what it does, when you basically inhale the air, it just warms it down. The temperature is needed to be raised, okay, up to a certain temperature so that it can easily be inhaled, it can easily get in. The mucus inside the nasal cavity captures the germ and the dead. So the hair inside, the mucus inside your nasal cavity that captures the microorganisms, the dust, and of course it also basically holds on the germs. The hair present inside prevent the small particles entering into the body. So children, the nasal cavity have a mucus, have a hair lining that is nothing but protecting it from any kind of a microorganisms or any kind of a disease, any kind of a germs which could enter into your body. So your nasal cavity, which is being lined by the mucus and your hair, is protecting your respiratory system. Yes, this is the characteristic of the nasal cavity. Next we have drag and drop to the location of the correct position of the nasal cavity. Simple. This is the nasal cavity. Simple. This is about the nasal cavity. Yes. As we move forward, next, what are the correct functions of the nasal cavity? Yes, it moistens the air, it warms up the air, yes, protects the body, help in digestion, release oxygen, prevent the entry of the harmful particles. Absolutely very simple. This is the correct option. These are the particular characteristic of the nasal cavity. This is how is it basically going to protect it. Moistens the air, warms up the air, prevent the entry of the harmful particles. Yes. Next we have the earthworm can send out their pharynx to take in the organic food waste. So this is of course a fun fact about the earthworms. What they can do, they can send out the pharynx to the organic waste food to basically take in the organic waste food. So after your nasal cavity, what comes in? The pharynx comes in. What is a pharynx, children? Talking about the pharynx in detail, pharynx is nothing, it is a common passage to esophagus and trachea. Can you see this? The common passage for esophagus and trachea. This is your mouth, this is your air, this is your esophagus, and this is your trachea. Yes, and this is your pharynx. Once again, I am just playing it. Can you see this? Your pharynx is a common passage for to esophagus and the trachea. Yes, this is pharynx, this is a common, this is how the wind is basically going in, this is how basically the food will go in. So this is a common passage for esophagus and trachea. As we talk more about the pharynx, children, click on the model to see the pharynx. Yes, both food and air passes through the pharynx, although each goes into a different way. Yes, both food and air goes throughout the pharynx and both they go into a different way. There is an esophagus there is your windpipe. There is a trachea, there is your esophagus. So, esophagus is for the food, trachea is for the air. So, the air and the food both passes through the pharynx, but each of them go to a different pipe. There is a food pipe, there is a windpipe. So, one goes to the windpipe, which is trachea, the other goes to the esophagus, which is the food pipe. Yes. So, children, talking about more of the pharynx, the food moves to the esophagus from the pharynx and air moves to the esophagus from the pharynx. Okay. This is about the different way of basically moving the. Next we have the food moves to the esophagus and the stomach after passing through the pharynx, and air moves to the larynx and into the final lungs. So, here the food which eventually move to the esophagus, which move directly to your stomach, and the air will pass through the pharynx, then to the larynx, and finally reaches to the lungs for the consumption of the oxygen. What we have next? We have a question. The pharynx is a common passage, connect the part. Okay, what is a common passage for oxygen? Yes, it's a common passage for the oxygen, carbon dioxide, and of course the food. This is absolutely true. Yes, the voice box. Now, after the pharynx, there is a voice box, which this is the voice I am producing. There is a voice box inside. Yes, which is called the larynx. Have you heard about the larynx? Larynx is your voice box. So, children, as we talk about the larynx, this is how it looks like. This is commonly known as voice box, which produces the voice, produces sound using vocal cords, helps in the breathing pattern. Yes, prevents food from going past into the trachea. So, your voice box, which is basically have a vocal cords which produces the sound. Yes, the sound is just being produced in the larynx is because of the vocal cords, and it also prevent the food from going past into the trachea. It does not allow the food entering into the trachea because that's a windpipe, and we cannot allow food to enter into the windpipe because it's not allowed. You know, sometimes you eat while you keep on talking and the food gets into the windpipe, slightly the particles get into the windpipe, you start coughing. And that is the reason the windpipe is just exerting all the food because it cannot take up. So, this is a flap which is the epiglottis. This is a vocal cord which is basically, as you can see, this is your trachea. This is your trachea. Yes, and this is your vocal cords, and this is whole or your larynx. Yes. As we move forward talking more about the respiratory system, next we have select the larynx model and talking about yes, this is the correct, this is the larynx, this is the voice box. Yes. Next we have when breathing, the larynx open consistently and close rhythm. So, when we are breathing, the larynx are consistently closing and opening. So, basically, this is how your larynx once is completely open and closed as a rhythmic contraction and relaxation. Yes. Next, we have another which is the trachea. Yes, the other part of the respiratory system which is the trachea, it is commonly called as windpipe. It is found between the two lungs and upon the chest. It brings air in and out of the lungs, connect pharynx to the lungs. So, your trachea is called the windpipe. As I just drag the slider and it connects the, as you can see, this is how it is present between two lungs. Yes, it connects the pharynx to the lungs. It brings air in and out. So, the whole function of bringing air in and out from the lungs is the responsibility of the windpipe, and that is why it is called as windpipe. It is connecting both the parts of the lungs and it is commonly known as windpipe present in the chest cavity. Yes, this is your trachea. What are the functions? So, children, the characteristics of a trachea, as you can see, your trachea is generally 10 to 12 centimeter long. Yes, the trachea is generally 10 to 12 centimeter long. The single hole opens into pharynx. Width is 20.6 centimeter. Wishbone type and open operates the lung, and select the trachea. Can you see this, children? This is how the air passing in and passing out. Yes. This is how the air passing in and passing out. The trachea, these are the characteristic of a trachea. Next we have, so children, this brings to our end of this particular session, where we have studied about the what? We have studied about the parts of the respiratory system. I know the lungs are left, but the lungs have a huge description. We're going to talk about the lungs in the next session. We have discussed about the nasal cavity, larynx, lungs, little bit about the lungs, the pharynx and the trachea, and we have discussed what the function each and every one of them have and how this is being placed inside your respiratory system. And next we have, children, how do air gets inside the lungs? This is something which we are going to discuss in the next session. Before you go, children, let me introduce you to this amazing app. You can just log in through your phone number and email ID. Just go and select your goals, which is select your exam, 7th standard, select your respective language and land on this page. As you land on this page, click on the home page button, go to the Embibe live classes, and you can see the Embibe live classes for the next 7 days. So these are the past Embibe classes. You can always, so your social studies classes are already scheduled. You can go and join them as well. You can learn, you can practice, you can test through this particular Embibe app. This is a one-stop solution for everything. This is the Embibe Lens app. What you can do, you can just scan the text. It will highlight all the things in the 3D and have a visual learning experience. And the last, we have the Embibe Telegram channel. Do not forget to just go and just join yourself on the Telegram channel so you never miss an update. We will meet again in the next session. Until then, please take care, keep imbibing. Bye-bye.
Keep imbibing. We believe in you.